I've had over 100 interviews with top agents, over 200 hours of conversations, and I wanted to distill it down to the 7 most important lessons to change your real estate business next year.
The important thing to understand is you don't want to go viral.
Understand that the first 20 videos that you shoot are not for yourself, it's for the algorithm.
Once you have their attention, then you can sell them anything you want.
And the first one is one of the most underrated topics, and it's talking about email marketing. We go into a local newsletter in a small town that grew into a $300,000 to $500,000 income business from zero. And he shares what does he put in his newsletters, how did he grow it, and what are the systems that helped him scale it to what it is today.
Once I hit critical mass, I could turn off my biggest expense, which was Facebook ads to grow. And total guess, but it turned out to be right. This is still true. We haven't spent money on marketing in years, and we grow every single week.
Everywhere that you're posting online, right? Whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of those places, it's what I'll call a rented audience. You don't actually own those emails. You don't control that distribution. You're 0 to 500 subscribers. You want that to be more or less organic. What you want to be doing in those Facebook groups is providing a ton of value. So doing the post hey, here are the 5 best events happening this weekend in LA or something. So you got an LA local newsletter, putting those 5 events with the links, with everything there. And then at the very bottom saying, if this benefited you, if you like this list, feel free to check out my newsletter. My average is right around 40 to 50 cents per subscriber on a good day or good performance. It's probably around 20 to 30 cents. I've seen it as low as maybe 18, the lowest. And on a struggling day, it's probably between 60 to 90 cents. I never really see it above $1.
We've got about 50, 55 websites, social media pages and things that we're checking twice a day for the next day's newsletter. You might think, why would they sign up for this? All the information is out there. Yes, but that's why it's worth reading for the people who read it, because they don't have to do this.
The events section in the top is definitely where we get the bulk of the clicks.
We're only going to talk about things within 10 miles of Annapolis. And even within that, we're not going to talk about crime, and we're not going to get political. And so I've just stuck to that ruthlessly.
I probably spend a week, maybe an hour a week, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours on a heavy week where I'm doing a lot of ads. So not a lot of time on the newsletter at all. I have a writer who writes the editions for me. She right now writes, 4 editions are around $250 to $280, depending on the price of the dollar to the shekel, which is the currency here. And then I also have a social media manager. I'm paying $100 a month. Think about what you're paying for advertising, and now I can just advertise whatever I want, whenever I want. That's one strategy. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whereas a sponsorship in a newsletter, even the biggest newsletters in the local niche are not going to charge you a fraction of that.
If we are going to advertise for you and it's going to cost you $20,000 a year, how many people do you need to get? How many new customers do you need to get to make that a positive investment? So for a realtor who's selling $2 million houses, $4 million houses, $5, $6, $10 million houses, there's not a lot of customers that he needs to get to make this profitable. It's one. I think Dave Portnoy once said, if you build an audience, you can sell them anything you want. Once you have their attention, then you can sell them anything you want, as long as you respect it, right?
We've sent over 400 local email newsletters this year, and we've kind of seen the same thing. In order to scale your newsletter, first you want to get your first 1,000 subscribers organically, because you want to make sure the content is actually enjoyed and opened and clicked from the audience. And once you reach that, then you can look at, okay, what do I want to do to scale it? And paid ads is probably the most simplest, because you can get a newsletter subscriber for 15 cents to $1.50 per newsletter subscriber, and it's worth it if you look at the ROI on a yearly scale. But most people think about how should I grow my newsletter before they think about what should I put into the content. After the 1,400 newsletters this year, we found what gets the most open rates is local news and developments, because if you say there's a $50 million or $500 million transformation happening in downtown Tampa, that's going to get people curious who are local, and they're going to open it. So having something relevant in the subject line, usually with some form of number, credibility, and big thing, gets people's attention, gets them to open. But what gets them to click are things like what's going on in the weekend, what events are going on. And we've also seen that local restaurant recommendations also get some of the highest clicks as well. That's what you should look at when you're looking at the content. But when you're looking to scale, you have a few different options. So really a newsletter has a few key people. You have the writer, you have the editor, who's also like the strategist, and then you have maybe a designer at most. So you really only need maybe 1 or 2 people to scale a newsletter. It's probably one of the most underrated marketing platforms because you can own your audience instead of renting it. Ryan actually found he gets over $300,000 in advertisers every single year for his newsletter. And one of the top 3 was real estate. So you have one question that you can ask yourself. Do I want to sponsor someone else's audience and help them grow their audience? Or do I want to sponsor myself and grow my own audience? And that's where we go into YouTube, which is one of the most underrated platforms to help convert leads and get clients. We've generated about 11 million in income last year from YouTube. And this is some of the best tips from some of the best podcast guests I've had on YouTube.
Understand that the first 20 videos that you shoot are not for yourself, it's for the algorithm, because you are creating your own niche. You're letting YouTube understand what your information's about and the audience that it needs to build for you. So it's not like, the first video is viral. You can't do 1 or 2 videos and you're done. And that doesn't matter if you're on Instagram, YouTube. You have to have a long-term plan. If you're consistent and your information's good and you're creating a niche, you're purposeful, and you're listening to what they want and you're reading your data, your analytics on the back end, I think that's a plan for success.
I was working with this guy, Dan, from Massachusetts, and he was looking to move here, buy a secondary home. And I said, I like working with people just like Dan, looking for a newer house or new construction. So when I started making content, that's what I set out to do. And so I would ask myself the question, every video that I went to make, does this bring value to Dan? And that's what I would do. In my first year, I brought over 300 leads in of people just like Dan, because that's who I was trying to attract. It didn't matter about subscribers. It just mattered about what is it I want to sell. If I tell a new agent, what is it that you want to sell? You like beachfront condos? Then focus everything on beachfront condos.
At first, it was really hard. I would just read line by line, and I would have to cut each line and cut out the ums and the pauses and everything, and it took forever. But whenever I kind of shifted to just, okay, this is what I'm talking about, making an outline, kind of like, okay, I know this area already. I know San Antonio already. These are the neighborhoods that I'm talking about in this video. This is what I know about them. These are some specific points that I need to make sure I hit, but let me just talk like I'm talking to a person on the other end of a phone call, As soon as I started doing that, the people started calling me like in droves. Most of the calls that I get, people are like asking me if I will work with them. I get people, that will tell me they've been watching my videos for years, and it's weird that they just never called me, but then now they're finally going to make that move, and so they've waited and waited and waited, and this is my YouTube channel has been like my follow-up plan. I haven't even had to touch them once. It's not like a Facebook lead that I've had to follow up with constantly for a couple of years. Like I would be terrible at that, because I'm just not good at the follow-up with being the introvert that I am. I'm not going to pick up the phone and call people. It's just, I don't like that. Now, getting the phone calls myself, though, I can work with that. These are even better than referrals. Past clients always have those experiences, right? These people have no personal experience. I mean, this isn't the best way to work, but they have no experience with me.
The reason I hired Rob is because I lost over $100,000 in 2024 because I couldn't follow up with everybody. These are hundreds of people in our pipeline that have reached out to us from YouTube. Let's just say that someone reaches out to me via email from YouTube and says, hey, we're going to be relocating toward the end of the year. They probably will not be coming into town in the next month or 2. Then Rob gets to talk to them until, let's say, late summer.
I will always categorize people into 3 different stages: the lake, biting, and hook. The lake is every person that comes through I've never met, never had a conversation. When I have a conversation with you and you have some interest in moving here, now I tag you as biting. And now once we're out showing property, you're hooked. It's my job to reel you in the boat.
So one of the biggest lessons that we've had this year, posting over 2,000 YouTube videos, is that YouTube's not about the views. And that's where most people make the mistake. And especially when they're getting started, as we saw, the first 6 months of creating YouTube content is not to look at the analytics, obsess about the numbers. It's to just put out your first 20 to 24 videos, and that's it. What you're doing is you're building an audience, and we've seen the first 6 months is where you actually learn what resonates, what content does your audience want, and then you build more for that. And you double down on the highest performers. And the easiest way to do this is you have the vidIQ Chrome extension. You look at your channel, you see what videos had a 2, 3, or 5x outlier next to the title, and you say, those did better than the average video on my channel, 2, 3, 5, 10x, and you double down on that content, and that content becomes a bucket in your strategy. As an example, the 3 buckets that we've seen actually do really well this year is 1, local news, coming soon, development type videos. This is stuff that are the big projects that are changing how people live, what they like to do. And that's like one of the highest performing buckets. Second is tours. So think area tours, neighborhood tours, driving tours, walking tours, home tours, which is surprising to a lot of people. And the way to do a home tour is actually more like a lifestyle home tour. And the reason being is that a regular home tour on an area channel actually doesn't perform well. And it's because the expectation from what people expect they can get for the price in the home and the gap between what they can actually afford is completely shot these past couple of years. And at the end of the day, a house is a box, and the features in the house are not really what sells it. People look at where is it located, what's the lifestyle, and then they see what house can they get in that area. So what we found is you flip the script on those home tour videos and you sell the location, then you sell the lifestyle, and then you sell the home. And those have done extremely well this year. That tour bucket is probably one of the most underrated way to actually get listings and get sellers because people see you doing that. Same with local news. Local news targets local people and can get you home value, cash offer, seller leads. And then the third is actually market videos. And we've built a few channels that are specifically driven just by market updates. And the way you actually can do this is you give a take on one single story that's in the news. So for example, if you see that prices dropped or inventory is rising or that X or Y is happening, you take that one story angle and then you talk about it and explain, what does this mean if you're a homeowner, you're looking to sell? What does this mean for buyers? And you simplify that story, and then you can keep having a story. And the thing about all those 3 buckets is the coming soon, local news, the tours, and the market updates actually creates a returning audience. And that goes into the second point that was talked about is YouTube is about time on platform. It's building equity with your audience. And at the end of the day, if you don't give it enough time, if you don't give it a year, kind of like you're farming digitally, you're not going to see the results. But what you can do is you can go on the analytics on the back end and you can compare, is the new versus the returning viewers actually trending upwards? And if you look at that and you see an upward trend, you're seeing that you're getting new people onto your channel and you're getting people watching more of your content. And usually both of those, but especially the second one, actually precedes you getting leads in business. So if your returning viewership is going up, you can expect in the next 3, 6, 9 months, you're going to start to get leads trickle in because it's time on brand, it's equity that you're building with the person. They're building trust and they're more likely to reach out and work with you. And they're not going to end up reaching out to someone else. So YouTube isn't about the views. Actually, the third one, social media, isn't about the views as well. It's about becoming the only option, the only thing that people remember. And what most people get wrong with social media, especially in the real estate industry, is they only focus on the views, they only focus on the growth, and they don't get up any leads. But the people I'm about to show you have built a massive business off the back of social media to tens of millions of dollars. So they're gonna show you what actually works to generate leads and generate clients from social media this year.
The important thing to understand is like, you don't want to go viral. Everyone's like, I want to go viral. I want a lot of views. I think if you have over like 100,000 views, you're probably doing yourself a disservice because you really only want local views. I don't want to go viral outside of my area, right? If you have a video that hits 1 million views, you think those are all people in Orange County? No, right? You want to stay on the Orange County, for me, I want to stay on the Orange County algorithm. The other 60% are like, I saw your weddings. I know you have 2 dogs. I know your whole team. Congratulations. Like, will you be my agent? The majority of the clients that we have already, they follow a bunch of realtors on social media and they've made a conscious decision to reach out to us.
I literally can't wait to go meet my clients because I've attracted people who are like me. The amount of times I get told when I actually meet a client in person for the first time and they hug me and they're like, I feel like I already know you, is so, you've already broken that barrier where you just can casually talk and feel comfortable. At first, I was just making videos just to get out there and get connected. I just wanted to talk to people because I was so lonely at home. And then you start realizing what people like and what they're responding to, and you start doing more of that and you pivot. And so now I rarely talk about real estate. I show like day in the life, or if I'm at broker's tour, and of course I post my just listed. But for the most part, I'm talking about me like puttering around in my garden. I'm talking about me like, teasing my husband or my kids. And that's really actually where I get the most engagement.
I don't know anyone who's converted more than like 150 million in social media leads, but we were able to build a brokerage and sell 300 homes in the last like 4 years from social media. And my content's not that amazing. It's just like honest and authentic. And I feel like if you're pushing who you are, as long as you're a good person, then it's easy to attract the right people to you.
I talk about it in our listing presentations. You can go on Zillow, you can do all of that, but I'm showing it to 22,000 organic followers who they look at this content differently than looking at a house. So I think the content gets sent to what I consider a couch buyer, someone who's just chilling on their couch and the right house makes them want to buy a house. They may not be pre-approved yet. They may not have thought about it, but that right house just came across their For You page or whatever you want, and I'm interested in that. And I've sold houses that way to people. And so that's where I think you're getting more of a reach, because if someone's looking for a house, they're looking on Zillow. They're going to see your house, right? And so I think it's more attracting the person that isn't necessarily on a Zillow search. I do polls. Like right now I have a poll. I went and looked at this place called Walk Your Plans. It's a new construction idea where your building plans get put on the ground, but in like life size. And so you can walk them. And then in my story, I said, are you thinking of building in 2026? And then the poll said, yes, but I'm looking for a builder. Yes, but I'm looking for a lot. Yes, I have no idea where to start. No, but I want to buy a house. I get so many leads that way because people click on the poll and then I DM them and say, hey, let's meet next week and talk about whatever they had checked, yes or no. The polls are actually the best way for me to get leads.
Everyone who follows me, we DM and we ask them if they want a buyer guide. Everyone who messages us, we ask them if they want to schedule a call on our calendar. Simple. We're just accessible. Right? We're accessible and like helpful and very no pressure. The no pressure is part of our marketing. I think being quick to respond makes a difference.
When I go to an event, I get there as early as possible so that my content is the first thing of the event to be shown. So it's kind of similar to Ken Posick's like news. Like you need to be the news. You need to be the first person to share it. Well, now I'm the first person to share that event. It took me a while to figure that part out. I've always done it, but I didn't realize the importance of it until about, 9 months ago. And I was like, I have to be the first one there.
I also was not good on camera. And I was really nervous about being on camera. And if there's like one message I could leave with people, it's like make bad videos and be comfortable doing that. And actually the one thing that got me over that hump was posting on my Instagram story every single day for 30 days. It's obviously been like 600 days since then. So it's just kind of like a domino effect. Like if I didn't have something to talk about, I forced myself to find something to talk about just to get more comfortable. And then that led me to, okay, if I want to be really good at this, if I'm going to double down, support my team, bring value to my clients, it's going to require pre-work and making sure that you're the most educated on the market, you're the most educated on development is a lot of what we talk about, right? Areas. If I don't know those things, I'm not going to be able to execute well. So that has just become a part of the process with the planning.
At first, I was just making videos just to get out there and get connected. I just wanted to talk to people because I was so lonely at home. And then you start realizing what people like and what they're responding to, and you start doing more of that and you pivot. And so now I rarely talk about real estate. I show like day in the life, or if I'm at broker's tour, and of course I post my just listed. But for the most part, I'm talking about me like puttering around in my garden. I'm talking about me like, teasing my husband or my kids. And that's really actually where I get the most engagement. In the beginning, I remember when I first started, like family members being like, what are you doing? No one's going to take you seriously. Like if you're on social media making these videos, and people kind of laugh at you until it works. I was a hairstylist before I got into real estate with tons a day, and I knew I had to get out. So I started doing real estate. And just as a way to, my grandparents were both realtors. Then the pandemic happened. I also found out I was pregnant the week before the shutdown. I was used to, being in the salon with my 8 clients a day and having 10 stylists in there who had 8 clients, and just walking around and being like an entertainer and talking to everyone, and then going on the weekends and evenings and showing property, to being alone in my house. I was just sad and lonely. I'm an extrovert, and I was almost borderline depressed. I just turned to social media and just started making videos, and I just started blowing up.
So those agents collectively generated over 150 million from social. And it's not because they chased views, although with the algorithm, yes, you want to understand what content performs, what doesn't, and you want to double down on what performs. But you can't only look at that, because there's a lot of real estate Instagram accounts that just do local news channels. The best end up mixing 3 to 5 different content buckets, like Brandon Blankenship with living in Chicago suburbs, Kyle with the KC scene, and then there's people like we've had Mari, Kina, Ksenia, etc. And you have to look at, okay, what do people care about locally? What's going to grab their attention? And then that's going to end up building trust. If you only focus on local news on Instagram, that's not going to be enough to build a trust with people. It's only going to get you views. And that's where you have to look at some of the other content buckets with real estate, days in the life, tours, and other local news that are like restaurants, etc. That helps build a connection to you, and then also gets you to be seen as the trusted agent. But you cannot just rely on content to convert to a client. What Brandon does better than anybody else is that he actually does a story poll, usually like once a week, and then he'll do a lead magnet like once a month. And from all of that, and then his content has calls to action, and he does many other things with his strategy. But when you're doing multiple things, then you have to actually digitally prospect. You have to go into the DMs. You have to actually follow up with people. You have to have a conversation, and you have to actually go into the sales. Most people just stick into the content, and that's why they don't end up getting leads and clients. It's once you start to build a system and you look at what's working. Oh, if I do a story poll once a week, if I do a lead magnet once a month, and then I actually go in the DMs, have a conversation, follow up, get people to fill out a form or schedule a call. That's how you can predictably get sales like everyone you saw a second ago. So when you stop chasing views and you chase trust, that's how you can turn a view to a lead to a client. And one thing that we talked about is prospecting, actually going after the lead and following up. And these agents next talk about how they generate listings in one of the most competitive markets in the world, the Hamptons and New York City and Brooklyn. And they did not do this because they had some form of connections or network. They actually built it and trained this muscle. It's not something that they were just born into. So they're gonna go into how they get listings in some of the most competitive markets in the world, so you can get more listings this year.
I just want you to know, I thought about this for a while. 90% of what I do every day is not natural, it's trained. I did not do any of this naturally. The way I walk, the way I stand, it's all trained. I was obsessive when I got into the business. I spent time practicing how to stand outside somebody's door, reading about body language to see how are they going to perceive, how does the way you stand impact someone's immediate perception of you? It's not a normal thing to do. Now I realize that. But for me, when I was learning it 10 years ago, I was just so let me just read about this because this would be super effective and helpful. And I would just read about it and then I'd go try it out.
I would filter my hot sheet every day from top to bottom. And so I'd look at everything that was active, pending, sold. starting with the highest active pending or sold property down to the lowest. And I would memorize that multiple times a day. To this day, I tell my team, like, become obsessed with the hot sheet, because that is the heartbeat of the market. And so that's really, like, in a very granular nutshell, how I went from kind of foreclosures to serving on the luxury side. Was I gravitated towards luxury. And what I like to tell my team is, where you gravitate is what you'll cultivate. Prospecting creates revenue, because relationships that you build through prospecting is ultimately what your revenue stream will be. So I always tell my agents that they need to focus on 3 different buckets. Those buckets include your current clients, which most people, like, they'll put a deal under contract and they may step out. They throw in a transaction coordinator and they have the title company or the settlement attorney get on it and, they kind of take their client from there. You always want to be prospecting your current clients. You also always want to be adding to your sphere of influence. So current clients, at the end of their deal, they go into the sphere of influence. You always want to be prospecting that SOI. And then the third bucket, that's probably the least exercised muscle in this business and the most impactful one to exercise, is your cold bucket. And so current clients, SOI, and then cold prospecting. And cold prospecting, it's like taking a cold plunge, right? Nobody wants to do it beforehand. But afterwards, especially once you've sat in, an ice cold bath for 3 minutes, you feel euphoric and, you're fired up and likely you got a great result. Cold calling in particular allows you to exercise a muscle that, 90% of the rest of the market's not exercising.
I downloaded a list of everyone who owned townhouses in brownstones in Brooklyn Heights. It was like 970 something people, 973, I think. And they had like this old sort of CRM type thing, and I just entered every name in. I looked up the phone numbers one by one, and I cold called all of them, and I mailed all of them. To this day, because I did that by hand, one at a time, today it's like you get VAs, you figure out how to accelerate all of it. It was 10 years ago, and it was at a place that wasn't very tech forward, so I did it all one at a time, and holy shit, that took about a year. And but to this day, you rattle a name, I can probably tell you an address. And because I did it the old-fashioned way. But I just was cold calling. I cold called a billionaire one day, and she picked up and didn't want to sell her house. I got off the phone. I'm ecstatic. I spoke to my first billionaire. That's great. Awesome. So proud of myself. And because those little wins were really important.
Getting a buyer need, somebody may say, hey, I need a 4-bedroom home under $1 million in X neighborhood. Well, if that doesn't exist, that gives you a real purpose to pick up the phone and call in that neighborhood and find a potential seller that didn't know that buyer was there, right? Zillow doesn't say, here's how many buyers are out there for, a 4-bedroom home under $1 million in X neighborhood. It just doesn't. So you are now positioned with proprietary information and value that you can offer somebody that would have never had it otherwise.
You have one chance. That's the way I look at it. You have one chance to make one first lasting experience. And it all starts at the front door. And if you have a bad experience at the front door, the rest of the showing a shot. When I show a house, it has to be in the best condition possible. I will visit a house 3-4 times before I actually shoot it, just to make sure the paint was done, make sure the furniture was decluttered, make sure that I give the seller a tour of what my expectations are. You'd be surprised if you just look on any website and you just look at a price point and you're going to see toilet seats, you're going to see paper towel, you're going to see toilet paper hanging, you're going to see carpets shifted, the toothbrush, the deodorant, the shampoo, the conditioner, they're all there. It's common sense. It takes 5 minutes to reduce all that down, okay? Sometimes you're in June, July, and you're looking on the MLX and there's pictures of a Christmas tree. Come on, that immediately tells me that listing's been on the market since 6 or 7 months, if you're in the middle of the year. Why hasn't that agent taken the extra time and effort to remove that? The details are very important. In the luxury market, it's all about details, right? Because it's based on their experience. The way I look at it is, you walk into a store, okay? Let's say, let's pick Chanel or let's pick Louis Vuitton. Things are perfect, right? The presentation, the white glove service, the way they bring something out. Now, you look at this building's 4,000 square feet, but they only have 10 bags. That doesn't make sense, right? Versus you go to a different store and it's one bag on top of the other. It's all about presentation. It's the lifestyle, it's the experience. If you go into a high-end dealership, Ferrari, McLaren, whatever the case might be, it's the same style. When you look at luxury real estate, it's the same concept, right? There's houses and then there's other houses. And yes, there's different budgets and there's different neighborhoods and there's different lifestyles. But at the end of the day, people want things that are unique. So when you're looking for real estate, when you're buying real estate, you want things that not everybody else has. That's the luxury sector.
I had $320,000 of student loan debt. I could not afford to fail. Couldn't fail. And if I wasn't going to fail, like I needed to make sure, like, it's like, oh, you got to be disciplined. Like, I can't like lose my temper with a client because I'm in a bad mood or because something bad just happened somewhere else. Like, I got to look perfect. And I got to put that act on because that's the only way I'm going to succeed. So it was born out of need more than anything else. But there was a quick realization that brokers who could not maintain a steady hand just didn't have staying power. People who I think succeed and outperform others, what is it? Delusional self-confidence, right? You should not be that confident in your own abilities. Not even cockiness. It's like, I'm going to get through this. I will do it. Like, and most like outside people look at that and, and independently, they'll probably think you're nuts. But you do it because you want it and you're gonna take that extra step. So that's what I take is like those two things. It's like you got to have that delusional self-confidence to really do something at a higher level than anyone else around you, than your competition. And I think you got to love it. And if you don't, like, it's just not going to align. It's going to be really hard.
If you've been liking everything from this episode, I actually made a completely free download in the description below that goes alongside. It's almost like a workbook, but it goes through actually each platform individually, YouTube, email, social, etc. And it goes into the metrics that matter, what we have proven to actually work from things like we've posted over 4,000 YouTube videos last year, sent over 1,400 newsletters. And it goes into things like what are the buckets that are actually proven to work for content on YouTube? What generates leads? What generates seller leads? What patterns have we seen? And it goes on email. What gets the highest open rate? What gets the most click? And then I go into the trends, the things that you need to stay on top of, as well as the core principles that really matter in the platform. And it's completely free. If you want to work alongside this and have something to kind of take away tactically and implement in your business, download it in the description below. It's completely free, and hopefully it helps you grow. So the number one thing that we've seen time over time is that when you find something that works, you focus on that and you scale that. The biggest problem that we've seen, and I've listened to people on interviews, is they end up trying to do multiple things and none of it works. For example, when Jack found that rentals was the lead-in to getting listings, he didn't stop doing rentals, he doubled down, and that's why he has over 500 rentals in the Hamptons. And same things with everyone else and how they get listings. Some, it's prospecting past clients referrals. They have a follow-up plan that they do for a year. Some do farming and others do open houses. You find a system, you take that system and you do more, you get better, and then you add something new. So you find the one system that you can do that you know that works. You do it more, you get better at it, you add a little bit of leverage and team, and then you scale to something new. The biggest problem is everyone wants to do something new and something new and something new, and they don't scale what's actually working. So that if that's the one biggest takeaway, it's focus on the one thing that you know is working to generate listings, or find the new one thing, do more of it, scale it in way more volume than you think it's actually gonna take, and then get better at it, add team, add some leverage, and then add something new. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I've seen from the agents that we've had on. And it actually goes into the next one, which is I talked to some of the youngest agents under 30 who scaled to a 1 to 2 to 3 million a year GCI business, and they've done it because they focus on a few things that has actually worked. So this one's gonna be really good. Let's check it out.
For like 20 minutes, I was really concerned about what people thought of me and what the numbers were. And I wanted to grow this big team because that's like the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I started to actually think about like, what did I want to do? And it wasn't that. I don't care about like the leaderboard. Like, yeah, it's cool to be like number one, but that's not what drives me. The number one thing I value is time, and it's being high dollar per hour activity. So I don't need to sell 100 homes a year to be fulfilled. I have an income number I want to hit. I'm an introvert. I don't love working with people. Like, I'm an operations guy. We were talking about this earlier, not like a natural born salesperson. So for me, it was just maximize every single transaction I do so I get to deal with less people. I realized I want to work with sellers, not buyers, because buyers, they take a lot of your time up, a lot of personalities. You got to pretend to be somebody you're not, ask how soccer practice was, work nights and weekends. I'm like, this is terrible. So I wanted to go after sellers.
The first 3 months that I was at Sirhan, I would spend, not over exaggerating, you can ask anyone that knows me, like 8 to 10 hours a day, cold calling, doing outreach to rentals, open rentals, exclusive rentals, trying to build up as big of a Rolodex on the rental side as possible. So we probably built up like 350 rental portfolio of houses that we were overseeing. The average renter probably rents for 3 to 5 years before they start to have that inclination about being a buyer. Because year after year, they're spending $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to rent someone else's home.
I found a lead generation system called the Golden Letter that was a simple MOFR, make offer for immediate response, where I would just send a piece of mail that said, Dear Andrew, would you sell your house at 123 Main Street to a client of mine? If so, call me on my cell phone. They're super inexpensive. I'd print them off just on printer paper, mail them out, and back at the height of the COVID crazy market, every 500 letters I'd send out, I'd take a listing, which would result in typically $15,000 in income for me. So it was a model that dramatically scaled my listing business from making zero money to $1 million.
All of our business is from 3 places: agent referrals, database, and social media. So creating content very regularly, like how often are we posting online, how often are we showing up, building the brand. And it's different than making 100 calls every day, but there's still a checklist. There's still an activity tracker that we follow. And I can always see, are we doing the work? Is it showing up in our business on the lead side? And because our leads are driven organically, they're warmer. And so our conversion rate is a lot higher than if we were having to pitch ourselves every day versus people coming to us with an innate trust. We've never paid for an online lead.
For my team, if you are on a listing every Monday, your main focus and your main goal is to update every client you're actively servicing. Because when I think of it from the other side, like on my end, if I'm the client, and I think of it like how like my financial advisor is. He is proactive enough. I never have to reach out to him. I get my updates before I have to reach out, so I never bother him. I don't think I've initiated a conversation with that guy in 3 years. Because anytime I would need an update, he gives it to me before I ask. So my mentality, and I love that. And my clients are busier than me, if not just as busy. Doing their own thing, leading companies, creating companies. We have clients who run some of the biggest hedge funds in the world. They don't have time to ask me, nor should they. Because my job is to streamline everything about their real estate. Ryan says to us relentlessly, is just follow up. He had a client in 2015 that he had to follow up with for, I think it was 7 or 8 years before the client actually started to work with him. And then within a year, he closed, I think, $100 million worth of real estate with him. So the initial thing is consistent follow-up.
You got to be careful with who you hire, and I don't want to hire anybody who wants to be me. I hired a showing partner once, and somebody said, "Oh, you're a licensed agent. I thought you were just Taylor's assistant." And that was a real big blow to her of like, dang, I got my license to be able to work, and I'm not. So I got to leave, and I got to go join a team, and I got to actually sell real estate instead of being Taylor's assistant. And so what I've learned is that when you hire people to their strengths, right? You got to find somebody who doesn't want to be anything other than what their role is. My showing partner now has no desire to sell houses, has no desire to build a brand or lead generate or negotiate, write contracts. They just want to show houses and be a part of the team. That is the right fit. I have people that reach out to me and they're saying, "Are you guys hiring? I hate being on my team. I hate my boss. I hate this." You are not a good fit for me because you are going to do the same thing when I piss you off. If they are ever negative about that other one, we know they're not a good fit.
I don't believe in highs and lows. It's like what I say to my team is, I don't care if you do the biggest deal of your life or you just had the biggest deal of your life fall through. We are always this. I don't care if somebody hugs you and tells you you're beautiful or screams at you and tells you to get hit by a bus. We are always this. because there's so much volatility, not only emotionally, but just fiscally in our job, that if you ride that wave, you'll burn yourself out so quickly. You will literally go insane. And I consider myself very fortunate that, I played sports in college. I played sports all my life. And, I had a background where, I played for some very intense coaches and I had some very intense parents. So, and then my first job was very intense. So I say to any new brokers I talk to or any junior agents, I'm like, you better find a way to navigate people screaming at you, people sharing disappointment with you. I don't care how unrealistic or realistic their expectations are. We are always this.
So as you saw, a lot of their business came from either cold prospecting, like Will use golden letters, Jack use rentals, and Taylor use agent referrals, her database, social media. So you want to look at the different options that you have, pick 1 to 2, double down and scale that. And what ends up happening is you can actually break through the noise because you come really good and exceptional at one thing. Like Jack became in the Hamptons with rentals. Will understood how to talk to homeowners. He was able to talk to the investors, the developers, and despite being like 24 years old, he was the one that they trusted because he became an expert. And then Taylor was seen as the expert in the local area because she was showing up online, she was consistent, and she was posting. So pick your lane and decide which one am I going to focus on, and then you go ruthlessly at that, and then you scale that, you add leverage, you do way more of it, and you do it way better. And that goes into the same concept of more, better, new. And then you can scale into something different. That's how you can scale your business if you're a younger agent. But how do you scale if you want to scale a team? Because a team can be one of the most costly things for your time, especially if you're a high performer. So this is going to go into the top takes of how to grow a high performing team next year.
A lot of things people get wrong. The first one is controversial. And it's they want to keep a small, tight Navy SEALs team, and they don't want to grow because they have great culture, they like their people, and the thought of managing a lot of agents sounds horrible. So they keep it small, and what they do is they're just keeping themselves in the messy middle indefinitely, which is actually the hardest stage of having a team. And I define the messy middle with 3 things. Number 1, you're in production yourself. You're the team owner in production. Number 2, you're recruiting. There's some level of recruiting that you always need to have. And number 3, you're actively the most important person to keep your agents in production. So you're keeping yourself in production and your agents in production and recruiting and running the management of the team at the same time.
From that to 8 to 10, margins aren't horrible there. You're probably still in production. But if you want to get out of production, the next step where the economics start making sense is getting to that 50 agent portion, right?
Yeah.
You got to get to 50 because it takes the same amount of staff to run 20 to 25 agents as it does to help manage 50. If you stick at 20, 25, it is no man's land. You don't want to stick there very long. And I think you're a little bit more durable though, like from loss of top producers. When you're at 25, that's probably one of the only advantages where you're not very durable.
99.9% of real estate teams in America have a cost of goods sold or a cost of sale problem. Same thing, meaning their agent splits are out of whack. So if you can establish a bright line of 50% on that as the first place to start, and that includes the team owner's production, you are leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Where most teams go wrong is they're giving 60-40, 70-30 splits.
It's just wild.
There's no profit.
When you hire or merge with anyone, you want someone who's ethical. Then you want someone who are good people. And good people, I mean that say yes, who contribute. And then third, you want a good agent. You can always teach someone to be a good agent. You can't teach someone to be a good person. And so when I looked at Ron and Polaris, they were great people. They were all ethical, and they just happened to be awesome agents. Don't grow to grow, grow for purpose, because the person you're acquiring or partnering with is going to make you better. Not just to have more numbers, not to have a bigger company. If you grow to grow, you're going to poison the well.
I used to do exit interviews with every agent that left the team. And while it was good feedback, it also, I don't know if it gave me all the right answers. And then I started talking to the people that stay. So instead of thinking of like, why did they leave? Started thinking of why did they stay? And so trying to build more tools for those people that were raving fans of the team, and wanted to continue to grow. We were losing people, what we would call level 3, 4. So these are top producers in the company. We were losing them. And one of the key reasons was they didn't know what was next to grow with us. Right. And so people are going to, especially ambitious people, are going to create a growth path. Yeah. And if you don't help them figure out their growth path, they're going to create their own and you won't be in it. Going from that, that small team to a team of 8 to 10, which we often refer to as the family aspect, which I would always caution against, calling it very family oriented, right? We're in this together and we're partners, right? But the family aspect can get hard when you really start to wanting to grow past that. What I had to start from there was changing that inner narrative that we're a family. We are partners in this business, and my job is to help you grow. When you're at a family level, is people are going to get really, really nervous when you start adding more and more people because they see it as a threat. You're talking to agents about a mindset of abundance.
Far too often, agents on teams are like, hey, before we meet, are you pre-qualified? Like, they don't want to talk to you about money. They haven't even met you yet. They don't even remember your name. We know that when agents get face-to-face with customers, those customers and opportunities close at a significantly higher amount. We're talking 60, 70% higher, right? So just get out of your own way and get face-to-face. Stop, make sure that the person you're about to meet is safe, utilize tools like Forewarn. But once the safety stuff's taken care of, get face-to-face. And, they're not going to close tomorrow. They're not going to buy the same house. But 3 months later, they will buy a house. 6 months later, they'll buy a house. But you got to get face-to-face, ask them what a win looks like for them, and then operate, solve their problems, and make things happen. And so the agents that are doing that, the agents that aren't like overqualifying pre-appointment.
When you lose the first one, you don't know quite what to do, right? You go and try to get your arms around that pod. You take it over yourself, try to get a temperature on who might leave. Leadership is not for the faint of heart. You have to be resilient. You have to sleep good in a storm. Once you start leveling up again and again, like by the time you build a really big team, all you're going to see is problems. Right. And every problem stresses you out and every problem beats you up and every problem seems like it's catastrophic. Man, you're going to be stressed out to the hilt. Your first lawsuit, or whatever, if you do 2,000 transactions a year, man, like I'm telling you, you're going to get lawsuits. Yeah. And you're just like, now you're going to be like, oh, crap. And you just send it over to the attorney, right? Or a pod leader leaves and you're like, crap. All right, well, what are our steps? What's our process?
2023, when interest rates shot up, was a real tough year. I mean, I'll be completely transparent. I think we made $8,000 profit. That was all our profit that year, in that was a 50-person company, I mean, it was we have never let anyone go. 2020, that has been a fear of mine, right? Is that if the market changes, I want to make sure that my employees can put food on their table. I've never fired anyone in my life. Like I don't want to start doing that now. Sorry, I guess I forgot the question, but
how did you deal with that moment when it's like $8,000 in profit? I'm sure mentally, I
didn't hire more. I mean, that was in that position, and I was so thankful because the year before is the one I was thinking about hiring a sales manager. I didn't hire more, and I think when times get tough, you can do one of two things. You can say, woe is me and work, or woe is me and worry about it, or you can just put your head down and grind.
So one of the biggest recurring trends that I've seen this year is more, better, new. And the biggest problem that I've seen after interviewing, working with hundreds and thousands of agents, is that it's kind of the idea of pouring water into a cup. A lot of the times people take the water, they pour it into their own cup, but they don't let it fill up, and then they start pouring in more cups. But what we've seen, especially from the people I've interviewed, is that you pour the water into your cup, the water overflows, and then it goes into the next cup, the next cup, the next cup. And that's one of the best ways to scale a team, is you have a system, whether it's Zillow, whether it's cold prospecting, whether it's farming, whether it's YouTube, social media, whatever the system is, and you get that and it overflows your cup, so you can start giving it to the other agents that you have on the team. And then you don't have to worry about them finding business because you're already giving them business. And that's why a lot of these teams scale easily with Zillow, especially with like the Lawton Group that we talked about, and why he's able to talk about the levels of scale from going from 1 to 10, 10 to 30, 30 to 100, and then 100 to 300 agents. And it's because when you have systems that work, you're able to scale that system and then add a new system on. That's one of the biggest things that I've seen is when you want to look at scaling a team, it's first scaling yourself and leveraging the team as a benefit to that. And then you're starting to hand them business and they'll bring in their own business as well. But this way, it's not becoming unprofitable for you because you're just giving things and deals that you can't do, and they can take that over, and then they can do their own business on top of that. But then you're also not having to teach, train something new, you're not having to coach, and it becomes way more scalable. And that's why you can't just stay in the messy middle of the 25 to 50 agents. Next comes, how do you hire? And one of the biggest things that I've seen when it comes to hiring is people don't treat hiring like sales. And that's all it is. It's a numbers game. It's about volume. How do you look at the process and add it, the hiring process, like the sales process? What's worked for us and what I've seen other people do is you have a massive amount of volume come into the pipeline. You have 100 plus, up to 1,000 plus people, and then you filter through 3 or 5 steps. A lot of people do an intro call, then they'll do a skill assessment, then they'll do 1 to 2 culture interviews after that. And that is how you have 10 options that you're choosing for one position instead of what most people have when they have 2 options that they're choosing for one. And more volume is the biggest thing that I've seen and I've heard and learned from Alex in what we've done when we had to hire a head of editing role. We have over 1,500 people come in. I interviewed 50 and then we chose 1. And that's what it comes down to is numbers, volume. You have to do more, better, new. That's what you see is one of the most recurring trends through a lot of this. But one of the biggest trends that we've seen in the industry is building a hyperlocal brand. And I've had some great guests on that shared their takes on how to build a hyperlocal brand. So let's check it out.
I wanted to build a media company. I got my license in 2014 and was getting direction from the leads of my team. The information was just completely all over the place. And I didn't see anything that was delivering it to me in the way that I wanted to consume content, which was kind of social first, right? I didn't want to type in ESPN.com anymore. I want to go on Twitter and see a headline. I'm going to go on Instagram and see a clip explaining something.
We launched the Orlando Reel, which was a standalone website, a standalone media company that had nothing to do with my face, but it was me behind the scenes. And we ran that for a year with really terrible results. We weren't really catching anything on Instagram. We weren't catching anything on our email list. We were closing. I mean, ultimately that is a funnel for real estate. And so even though we had some call to actions, like, man, it was not working. And so after we gave it exactly 1 year, and on its anniversary, we all high-fived each other and said, cool, what did we learn? Well, we're not selling houses from this, so how do we sell houses from this? So then we rebranded it to where my face is everywhere. It's me. Like, it's the Orlando Reel is Ken Posick's newsletter, kind of like 5 Bullet Friday is Tim Ferriss's newsletter, or there's a bunch of there's a million of them out there, right? And so